it's 2 o'clock, and you're lazy about praying Zohar. So you say that, okay, let me finish this and then I'll pray. Let me wrap up this and then I'll pray. The whole time that you spend from, let's say, 2 to 3 has a lack of barakah in it, has a certain tension in it because you haven't prayed. If we force ourselves to go ahead and pray, then you will find a complete ease and contentment in your heart for the remainder of the time up till Asr, because you have prayed Zohar and you didn't postpone without any sort of important or valid reason. And then Allah Ta'ala will put barakah in that time between Zohar and Asr. And this is the test really that is especially more for women. Because by and large, most men try or at least have this assistance of offering their prayers in Jamaat in the masjid. But because it's not as emphasized for women, then many women pray individually. And because they pray individually, then their time management, right, is much more, it's much more left up to them to manage their time. And therefore, it's very easy for a man, we just would simply tell him to go and pray in Jamaat in the masjid, right? And then the whole issue of procrastinating and delaying prayers or sleeping without praying Isha is solved. But for a woman, right, whether it's Zohar and Asr or midday prayer for a person who studies or works, or Isha prayer, right, for any woman, the more and more you delay it, you will find that praying becomes more and more of a burden. It's funny because we delay it because we think, okay, we're busy now. It's 7, 8 p.m. I'm busy now. It'll be easier to pray later. But you will find, practically speaking, that when 9, 10, 11 starts coming, then you don't find it easier to pray. You find it harder to pray because you're more tired or whatever. And it would have actually been retroactive, and even in just, one is historical hindsight. Sometimes you can have hindsight even in just in a matter of hours. When it hits 11, you are going to be so tired, you want to sleep. At 11 p.m., you will wish that you prayed at 7:30, and you will say that, oh, it would have been so easy to pray at 7:30. It's so difficult to pray now. But at 7:30, you found it difficult to pray then, and you said, let me finish what I'm doing, and then it'll be easier for me to pray later. So it's just a general, simple rule, right? And the amazing thing is we don't learn this lesson, right? Anytime any one of us, let's say, falls asleep without having prayed Isha, this means that we should learn our lesson. That, okay, that was it. This just showed me that I'm not capable of delaying this prayer. But the very next day, a person will do the exact same thing. It's amazing, right? That what has happened to us as Muslims is that we fail to learn from our own faults. We fail to build on our own failings, right? We don't have even a basic level of self-assessment, of self-improvement, right? So procrastination and delay, for a woman, it's even more critical when it comes to the 5 daily prayers. And again, if we forced ourselves to pray, let's say at 7:30, you will find that you're totally relaxed and you're totally tension-free up till when you sleep. And when it becomes 10 and 11, you have this luxury of crashing. You can just go and conk out on your bed whenever you want. You don't have to worry about having to pray because you've already prayed at an early time. And you're totally content and totally relaxed. And then when you sleep at night, especially if you're a person who tries to pray regularly, you know when you sleep and you haven't prayed Isha, you don't sleep with a clean conscience. You sleep with a guilty conscience. And that guilt is going to nag you throughout the night. Number one, it might prevent us from waking up for Fajr. Number two, even if somehow we manage to get up for Fajr anyway, our whole night was spent in a state of stress. Subconsciously, subliminally, our conscience will be disturbed the whole night. And then the barakah will be taken out of our sleep because we slept in a state, or we passed the whole night really in a state of sin. It's fascinating that that is the power of salah. If we deliberately miss a prayer, let's say we deliberately miss Dhuhr, then the second Asr starts, that whole time of Dhuhr is written as if we lived every second of that in a state of sin. So when we wake up in the morning, right, what just happened is it's as if we spent the whole night in disobedience. We spent the whole night in sin. Such a big, right, burden on our book of deeds, and countless moments that we have such few precious moments of righteousness. How could we, just out of our laziness, all of a sudden add, let's say these days it says at 7, right? And Fajr starts at 5, right? Or 5:12. So we just added 10 hours of sin. How are we going to compensate for that? Where are we going to bring the 10 hours of righteousness or 10 hours of good deeds to just nullify, right, those 10 hours of sin? How much easier it would have been to just pray for 10 minutes to save ourselves those 10 hours of sin. How much more difficult is it later to bring 10 hours of good deeds to try to compensate for those 10 hours of sin? Now again, this is not exactly mathematical, right? Obviously a person might do tawbah, a person might do any action, even momentary, that Allah Ta'ala may accept and use it as an expiation for our sin, but it's worth thinking about, right? That we passed the entire night in a sinful state. Why? Because of procrastination. Because we postpone. That's what it means that we've received hidayah. I mean, I'm using a very, very basic example, which is that of salah. Any person who believes in their heart that salah is fard, that it's fard to pray 5 times, and they have received hidayah about salah. I'm using this term because you know, and you will have met many colleagues of yours, and certainly colleagues of mine, who actually do not believe that prayer is mandatory. They might even be multiple degrees even further. They might not even believe in Allah, or they might believe in God, but they might think that God lets you worship Him in any way you want, or God doesn't need your worship, or all types of views that are out there. Any person who actually, by the fazl and grace of Allah, alhamdulillah, believes that namaz is farz, that's hidayah. That's hidayah. It's not because we're intellectually superior to anybody. It's not because we're more rational than anybody. If we have been guided to this understanding that salah is farz, guided to this understanding, in other words, we received hidayah. Okay, and when we don't pray, that means anybody who has this guidance, anybody who believes that salah is farz and then doesn't pray, they're doing what this verse is mentioning. We've spurned that guidance, and we have to reflect, right, that what's happened to our hearts, that we had received hidayah, our mind acknowledged this hidayah. What happened to us that despite all this, we are spurning this hidayah? And if we find ourselves in this state, then we should reflect on this verse of the Qur'an. And we should make this dua. And we should realize then that we are people in deep need of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are people who deeply need His rahmah. Right? Now, and the last part, Innaka Antal Wahhab, it represents a reorientation, a reaffirmation of Tawheed. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever was preventing us from following what we intellectually believe to be hidayah, that was a type of shirk. We preferred something over your hidayah. Whether it was our sleep, whether it was our work, whatever it was, the reality is that it means that we prefer that over your hidayah. We set that up as a rival to your hidayah, to your hukam, to your wish. And that is a type of shirk. That is shirk khafi. That is a type of inner shirk. So we reaffirm our tawheed at the end of this dua, Innaka Antal Wahhab, that verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you and you alone, right, are the bestower or the giver. Right? There is nothing else, there is no other being who can bestow anything upon us, who can grant us any type of success, who can give us any type of mercy, who can send upon us any type of grace or blessing except for you. And therefore we reorient ourselves to follow you and you alone. So I gave one example here of a particular act of worship, salah, in terms of procrastination and delay. Second example is, from the other side, is that many times we receive hidayah that something is wrong. Okay, the first thing is that something is right, is fard, is desired by Allah, and we fail to do it. The second, the flip side, is something is prohibited by Allah, and therefore we shouldn't do it. And we know this, right? We've received hidayah. Again, this is a major blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are many people who don't call a spade, don't recognize sin as sin, will view an activity that is impermissible and say, no, it's perfectly fine. So again, you will have colleagues, as I do, who will say that it's fine to date, it's fine to drink, it's fine to do this, it's fine to do that, it's fine to